So, as many people are probably aware, there was a gruesome quadruple murder back in November of last year, and the victims were four college students, three females, one male, all aged 20 or 21, and they all were stabbed to death by this monster named Bryan Kohberger, who's originally from Pennsylvania. Now, the murders did occur in an off campus rental house. Um, the school was, of course, the University of Idaho, and the University of Idaho is in Moscow, Idaho, which is far north of the capital, which is Boise. It's a pretty remote part of the state. But anyway, this case is interesting to me because they are seeking the death penalty, but Idaho is not a state known for applying a death penalty too often. According to a news report that I just got, it was only the death penalty has only been applied less than a handful of times over the past 40 years, which is pretty remarkable to me. And I know Idaho is not a very violent place, but being a super red state that it is, I found that quite remarkable. And not all the victims' family is on board with the death penalty. Some are, and some are not.
Bryan Kohberger, who is accused of killing four University of Idaho students, could face the death penalty. Now, prosecutors told the court that the murders were especially heinous and that Kohberger allegedly exhibited utter disregard for human life. He is in court today for a pre-trial hearing, and his team is expected to request a host of information from the grand jury proceedings that indicted him. Now, he did not enter a plea in this case, but the judge entered a not guilty plea for him. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson joins us now live. Steve, good to see you this Tuesday. First off, only 3 executions, just in terms of context here, have occurred in the state of Idaho in more than 40 years' time. So tell us about why the prosecution at this point is deciding to seek the death penalty.
Yeah, they're very limited, and I think part of the reason why we're hearing about it now, and as you may imagine, and as you're alluding to, it's a little bit complicated in the state of Idaho to file for the motion to pursue the death penalty. That's essentially now what the prosecution has done, but that adds sort of extra layers onto the legal process in Idaho. First of all, you're now kind of splitting the case, the trial itself, into 2 phases. There's the trial itself, of course. The jury will hear the trial, they'll deliberate, they'll render a verdict, and then it moves on to a second sort of penalty phase in which the jury has to sort of take in all the considerations that allow it to be a death penalty phase and consider whether or not they should rule on that as well. So it's 2 different phases of the trial. But even before you get there, you know, you have to sort of factor in the fact that it is now a death penalty case. So the defense has to build in a defense penalty defense, which requires a whole lot more litigation as well. The point is that all of this is expected to add extra time either onto the beginning or the end of the trial or both. Morgan. And
Steve, the University of Idaho wants to demolish the house where those murders actually occurred before the new school year begins. But the parents of Kaylee Gonsalves, they're asking that the house not be torn down. Why?
So basically, the case is going to be a little bit more sophisticated, according to the Latah County District Attorney, if they are seeking the death penalty, which the district attorney is seeking the death penalty, as they should. And I'm a firm supporter of the death penalty in some of the more egregious murder cases where the evidence is just overwhelming. This devil stabbed these 4 people to death. He just slashed them all to death in the late night hours, I think, of November 13th last year, 2022. And 3 young women and 1 young man. And according to a article I read from Newsweek, I think that 2 out of the 4 victims' family members want the death penalty. The young woman, Christy Goncalves, her parents want the death penalty, and the mother of one of the girls does not want the death penalty. She wants the young man to spend life in prison. And then another one of the victims' family wants the death penalty. And the 4th family member, surviving family members, they have not commented yet. So we'll see how this goes. I believe if we use capital punishment a little bit more in this country, and we didn't wait for 15 to 20 years to execute people who commit these type of egregious murders, then the propensity to murder people would plummet. You don't have murder rates like you do in America in some of those Muslim countries in the Middle East, and even a country that's far out in the ocean like Indonesia. They have a population of about 250 million people, give or take, but they have less than 2,000 murders per year. That's remarkable. You got over 2,000 murders in the state of Texas a year. But that's another conversation for another day. We'll see how this goes. I hope that they can have a successful prosecution of this man. I do believe they'll give him the ultimate punishment. Condolences to the family members of the deceased, and hopefully they'll get justice soon. Y'all like, y'all share, y'all subscribe.